evening, for the second time in as many weeks,
I got some video of the scene.
Another African-American has been fatally shot by police.
Mystery death of a young man in Baltimore police custody.
She drew her gun instead.
It is an unending cycle
The protesters say they'll be back again on Wednesday.
of mourning, protest, and media spectacle.
I want you and Fox News to get out of Baltimore City because you're not here reporting about the boarded up homes and the homeless people under MLK.
After the killing of another African American at the hands of the police. And time and again have come the promises to do something about it.
This is an issue that we've been dealing with for too long, and it's time for us to make more progress than we've made. And I'm not interested in talk, I'm interested in action.
But the focus often ends up being no broader than the explicit details of each death and the individual officers involved.
They happen, it happens where they have to make a fast decision and some bad things happen.
They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out.
Well, what I would say is this. If we're talking about bad apples, we need to also be seeing good apples. And we don't see too many good apples stopping the bad apples from doing all these things, which leads me to believe that there is a problem at the root of the tree.
But dealing with that problem needs acknowledgement from the police that something's wrong in the first place.
I do not believe there is systemic racism in law enforcement in the United States. And I think if you go behind the perceptions, if you go behind the hyperbole, you will see that is not the case. Law enforcement officers every day go into communities that the people complaining about them would not go into on a bet with their windows rolled up and their doors locked.
So why then is the rate of black people being killed by the police so much higher than the rate of white people being killed by the police?
It's not.
DOJ figures are talking about nearly 30% of those killed by the police were black, and they are 13% of the population in the US.
And what was happening in those interactions when the individuals were shot, overwhelmingly when people are shot by the police, they are engaged in activities of either assaulting the police, assaulting another person, or committing a crime.
You just opened my car door, so you're threatening to drag me out of my own car.
Get out of the car!
Give us proof that we're systemically racist is still the refrain.
Wow.
Get out of the car!
For a failure to signal. You're doing all of this for a failure to signal.
Get over there!
People would be fine as long as they're not doing anything wrong, he says.
If he tells me, the earth is round, right? And I tell him to prove it, I don't think he's a physicist, and I know he won't be able to pull out data to prove that. But we all know the earth is round because we're not stupid. So what I would tell him is, you need to talk to people who have experienced this, because clearly he hasn't.
The protests last year were meant to be a turning point, a moment of reckoning, where America talked seriously about all aspects of racism, on how it affected poverty, education, mental health provision, and how that all impacted violence and policing. Joe Biden stood on a platform of addressing all those things and was elected in large part because black voters turned out for him. He's championed a Justice and Policing Act, but it'll need buy-in from states and in many respects from police departments as well.
The people who you were talking about earlier who don't believe there's a problem and who don't believe that there's racism and systemic racism in this country will push back against it. But it's there, and those conversations have to be had, or else these things will continue, and we'll fix little things when there's really a bigger underlying problem causing everything that we're not touching.
No racist police! No justice, no peace! No racist police!
But for now, the tragic list of dead keeps growing. The grim cycle so far proving impossible to break.
That pandemic of racism and discrimination that killed George Floyd.
Because while we may just see their gut-wrenching final seconds, the death of each person and the reaction to it takes place with hundreds of years of racial injustice as its backdrop.